Hey guys, Lance and Stephanie here. There's so many videos and so much talk about the commission changes. I know Arizona has technically put it in place, not official till the 17th, but we have dealt with this a ton over the weekend with our buyers and our sellers. So we're just going to give you a little quick breakdown of the two forms you'll need to know and what we are doing about it. So what is the two forms again? Because you're better at that part.
The compensation agreement between brokers and the seller compensation addendum, which is my favorite.
So what is the compensation agreement between brokers?
So the compensation agreement between brokers can be something that is provided maybe after I've showed a house and I call the listing agent and I say, we are definitely writing an offer. Is your seller offering any compensation to the buying broker? And if so, they can send that to me, or I can send it with an offer. We've actually seen it both ways this last week.
Yes, both ways. So we had it on both ends. So I think our first one was a buyer, correct?
Yes. Yep.
And that was the compensation addendum between brokers.
Yeah.
And that broker was offering 2%. Our buyer had already signed a buyer broker with us for 3%. And so obviously that's what he was needing to pay. And the fact that they were offering only 2%, what did you do about that when you submitted the offer?
Yeah, so we signed the buyer, the broker to broker agreement. We signed that at the 2% that she was offering. And then we added in the 1% onto our seller concessions so that it made the 3%, which is what my buyer broker agreement signed with the buyer was.
So that's one way you handle that. If they're only offering 2%, 2.5%, or a flat fee, whatever they're offering, if your buyer's already signed 3% with you and that's what they've agreed to pay, but they don't want to have to pay out of pocket, you can still add it in to their offer for the seller to pay as concessions, obviously. So the other one, we actually had a listing. We offered 2.5%, correct? And what did the agent end up doing with their offer?
Yeah, she submitted her offer with the seller compensation addendum, which you mark on the bottom of the first page saying that it is incorporated with the offer. And then she sent the offer to us and the addendum requesting 3%. And this is why I love this addendum, because it gives the sellers an option to counter.
So initially when we would do listings, you would tell the seller, yes, you should offer that. Obviously it was always optional, but now you can tell the seller, you don't have to initially offer that. You don't have to offer 2%, 3%. Let the buying agent do that negotiating. If they bring you a good offer and the buyer doesn't want to pay it out of pocket, then they can ask for it from your seller to pay those fees. So there's options, but there's no reason to be pushing your sellers to be offering a set amount up front, especially if a lowball offer comes in or, something in that scenario.
Yeah, and like Lance is saying, so we just did a listing agreement today with a seller, and on her listing agreement, she put that our brokerage will be receiving 3%. And then we didn't even fill out anything. We're going to allow the buyer's agents to bring their offers with their compensations to the table so that then she can decide at that point if she wants to counter that or if she wants to accept that. So.
Yeah. And again, I think that this just puts more work on the buyer's agent, but for good reason. Buyer's agents need to prove their worth. And if you're willing to do something for a flat fee or a discounted percentage, then that's between you and your buyer. So just something to think about. Again, I think offering compensation to a buyer's agent is important. I think it'll make a difference when selling your home, but I don't think there's any reason to have a set rate up front.
Yeah, and I think that because we had months of not knowing what was going to happen and how agents would submit offers and what we were going to be allowed to do, it built up all this hype. And it's really not that complicated. It's simple. Just submit it with your offer and then go from there. Two
options. The CAB is what we've been calling it.
Yep.
And compensation addendum between brokers.
And the seller compensation addendum.
So we like the seller compensation addendum. If you want to use the CAB form, that's fine as well. And that's a way to tell people up front what your seller's willing to pay.